Hi guys, from the 1st of September to the 8th of September, Russia is planning to hold its biggest naval war game since the Cold War. I'm going to let this lady tell you all about it.
Russia is set to hold its biggest war game since the Cold War. The military exercise is scheduled for next month and will also involve the Chinese and Mongolian armies. Our Noam has the story.
Chinese and Mongolian, yeah?
The war games are being called Vostok 2018, which translates East 2018, and will be held in central and eastern Russia. Moscow's defense minister Sergei Shoigu says it will involve almost 300,000 troops, tens of thousands of tanks and armored vehicles, more than 1,000 military aircraft, and 2 of Russia's naval fleets. The 5-day exercise, starting September 11th, will be Moscow's biggest military maneuver since the Cold War drill back.
Okay, that's unusual because obviously the report here says the naval exercise will take place from September the 1st to September the 8th. But as you heard there, this Vostok 2018 is due to begin on September the 11th. So let's keep listening.
In 1981, it comes at a time of heightened tensions between Russia and the West. Moscow is concerned about what it says is an unjustified build-up of the NATO military alliance on its western flank. NATO says it has strengthened its forces in Eastern Europe to fend off potential Russian military action after Moscow's annexation of Crimea 4 years ago. NATO said it would monitor the upcoming military exercise. In regards to the participation of Chinese forces, a Kremlin spokesman said it showed Beijing and Moscow were cooperating in all areas. China's defense ministry said it was taking part to enhance military coordination with Russia, but said the drills would not target any third party. Vostok 2018 will serve as a show of Russia's military muscle at a time when President Vladimir Putin is making military modernization a top priority.
It seems to me that that drill is far too big. Tens of thousands of military personnel involved and military equipment. Doing it on September the 11th, it's definitely suspect. So I wanted to bring that out first of all, point out that there is a big watch on that particular naval exercise, which could turn into something real. You've got China and Russia cooperating with each other, doing this drill where they've got tens of thousands of military equipment and personnel involved. If something was to happen, conveniently, they're kind of right there, ready, prepared to send their navy off to war. This comes as tensions escalate between the United States and Russia in response to those warships that Russia has deployed to the Mediterranean. This is also coming amongst the battle about to take place in Syria, northern Syria, Idlib, where we have the terrorists holed up in northeastern Syria, and the Russians saying that it looks like another false flag provocation chemical weapons attack is going to be used in order to allow the United States, most likely the UK, France, and maybe some others, to launch attacks on Syria, which Russia is saying they're prepared for, or at least they will respond to. At the same time, the United States is creating no-fly zones in Syria. Where they're doing it is curious. The US has built 3 advanced radar systems in northern regions of Syria. Isn't that where the terrorists are? So it seems to me that the name or the word terrorist is only applied to groups of people that are doing something that doesn't suit your agenda. If they are people who are supporting your agenda, i.e. not allowing Syria to take back all of its country, then they are rebels. So they're terrorists or rebels, depending on what side of the coin you spin. But looks to me that America is fully ready to defend them with these radar systems, these air defense systems that they're installing in northern Syria. And obviously, I don't think Assad and Russia are going to back off. So that's leading up to a direct clash between these 2 superpowers and some important regional powers as well. A lot of things going on there. And you have the United Nations calling on Russia, Iran, and Turkey to forestall a battle in Syria's Idlib province, which I just talked about, which could affect millions of civilians. Their worry is that the chemical weapons could be used on both sides. And I found it interesting that they've given the number of terrorists at 10,000, And with all this chemical weapons talk and possible 9/11 style false flag event, possibly London. When I'm seeing these numbers in Syria, I'm thinking maybe it's Syria. Possibly both. We'll see. But you've got including estimated 10,000 terrorists there. From the IPEC GOAT video, I've interpreted a number of 10,000 ID dead in association with a possible chemical attack. And that could be what happens in Syria. Maybe something happens over there which affects 10,000 people. Conveniently, it could be 10,000 on the air quotes terrorist side, and then that could obviously lead to this perfect storm between China, Russia, the United States, and obviously, as we just saw from the report at the beginning, China and Russia are going to be conducting this joint drill together, largest since the Cold War. So if anything does kick off in terms of a chemical attack that would lead to confrontation between the United States and Russia, then China's already there with their little drill, kind of prepared to step in on that point. So a lot of maneuvers being made in these last couple of months of 2018, and I'm quite confident that something's going to happen in 2018. Although it hasn't happened yet, things have just been moving in that general direction consistently. They haven't backtracked or slowed down. Even when we had the talk of North Korea and the peace deal, a lot of us knew that that would not pan out. And it hasn't. As far as we can see, things are still breaking down. Leaders from Turkey, Russia and Iran will be meeting next week. That'll be on September the 7th to discuss this ongoing war in Syria. They'll be meeting without the United States. The United States is quite an important factor in Syria, but they'll be meeting without them to discuss this ongoing war. And obviously this is in the middle of Turkey having its issues with the United States and looking for different possible allies. And then you just think about it. Erdogan moves to tighten his control within Turkey. He is also shifting the nation's foreign policy to a more aggressive stance in order to allow Turkey to emerge as a regional leader. As the US condemns Erdogan's move towards authoritarian control, further straining the US-Turkey relations, and obviously Turkey is a part of NATO, Erdogan appears to be putting himself in a position to form alternative alliances, such as with Iran and Russia. So you've got these three countries that are all being sanctioned, and now they're turning to each other to support each other in these times. And obviously that's not just economically, that would be militarily as well, which would lead to Turkey leaving the NATO agreement and the loss of an important strategic ally in the Middle East would be quite devastating to the Western alliance. So definitely something to watch out for. While all that's going on, Israel's renewing its threats to attack Iran targets in Syria. Obviously, if things escalate to the point where Iran blocks the Straits of Hormuz, and I don't know if that's going to be happening soon, because the sanctions for Iran's oil don't go in place until November. So that would be logically a better time for Iran to block the Straits of Hormuz. And obviously that will be around the midterms as well, so there's a lot of things to watch out for in November, which I'm going to get to at the end of the video. Israel saying we will not allow Iran to establish itself militarily in Syria. They've been saying this consistently. We will react in Syria with all our might against the Iranian target that threatens Israel, and if the Syrian army's air defense intervenes against us, it will pay the price. And this rhetoric has been going back and forth over the last couple of months, or last couple of years, but really escalating in the last couple of months, where we've seen some of the bloodiest conflicts happening in Syria. Iran's supreme leader says he will scrap the nuclear deal with world powers if it does not serve his country's interests. Now, this is an emphasis on something that's already been said before by Iran's supreme leader, but it's getting closer now. You know, the Iran oil sanctions are coming up soon. Iran's already under sanctions, which is affecting their economy, and they basically are saying there's no hope. As you can see here, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei said there was no hope European countries could save the agreement made with other world powers in 2015. That's referring to the Iran nuclear deal. The accord was put under threat following the US withdrawal by Donald Trump in May Britain, France and Germany condemned the move and promised to stay in the nuclear agreement, claiming it was the only way to prevent a Middle Eastern nuclear arms race, but Tehran might now also abandon the agreement if guarantees on oil sales and trade are not met. It's impossible for Britain, France and Germany to guarantee oil sales and trade without the United States. So the Iran deal is dead. It's just flapping in the wind at the moment. They can keep saying they're trying to save it, blah, 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 blah. It's going to die. Iran is going to leave it, and that is going to escalate things really, really quickly, because from there, Iran can jump its uranium enrichment above 20% and, start producing nuclear missiles, if they haven't done so already, which I think they have. Obviously, we had the reports earlier this year of them doing their tests out in the desert, missile tests out in the desert, and the recent reports of the nuclear cache that was raided by Israel all just suggest that they've been working on this nuclear program in secret, despite the Iran nuclear deal. But now they're at a point where if the deal dies, which it will, then they bring it out into the open and do it openly, which obviously will cause Israel to probably throw out some threats, and those threats would likely be followed up by some action if Israel and the United States deemed that Iran was a threat, which they already do. So it's all kind of something that's going to happen. It just needs to be explained to the public in a way that can be digested and not look suspicious, which they are doing. Japan. I already talked about Japan. I don't trust them. There's something about them that I don't trust. Their maneuvers are suggesting that they are switching alliances, and this, I feel like they have resentment about World War II. They're the only country that 2 nuclear bombs got dropped on, the only use of nuclear weapons in conflict in history, and I feel that they're resentful for that, and you can't say that they shouldn't be, but there's a plan set up here that looks like a betrayal is on the cards in relation to Japan. I already talked about Japan standing down on their missile alert against North Korea. That report came out on the 1st of July. Now I'm getting a report that this summer, the Japanese concealed a meeting they had held with North Korea from senior US officials. According to people familiar with the matter, the secret meeting, which has not previously been reported, took place in July in Vietnam between a top Japanese intelligence official and a senior North Korean official in charge of reunification. So that meeting took place in July, and in the same month, Japan lowered its alert level against North Korean missiles, despite the fact that all the evidence is pointing to North Korea continuing to develop their nuclear program and their missiles. So what's going on? Then I get this report come out yesterday that says Donald Trump told Shinzo Abe, "I remember Pearl Harbor," before North Korea Kim Jong-un meeting. That was the meeting in Singapore at the island of Death from Behind. Death from Behind is a betrayal, stabbed in the back. US President Donald Trump told Japanese Prime Minister, "I remember Pearl Harbor," at a meeting between the US and Japan in the summer before the summit with North Korea. Despite the strong relationship between the two countries, Trump apparently also said he was on to the Japanese. Concerns have now been raised about how favorably Trump used Japan after he made links to the 1951 conflict. Shinzo Abe visited the US just before Trump held his landmark summit with North Korea in Singapore. According to reports in Reuters, Mr. Abe was trying to persuade Trump to keep his tough stance on North Korea. Now, all of that combined, it just says to me there is an animosity that is below the level of perception or public perception going on between Japan and the United States. It appears to me that Japan has or is in the process of making an agreement with North Korea, which would probably have links to any missiles that were to be fired from North Korea. As I said before, Japan's standing down their alert. If something was to happen where North Korea did launch a missile, they're not in the same level of alertness or readiness to respond, and that could be used as a convenient excuse as to why they were unable to intercept the missile. Possible. All just scenarios just pointed out there. So all of that covered 30 earthquakes in the last 24 hours in the Pacific Ring of Fire. That's a lot of earthquakes in a short period of time. They all range from 3.6 to 7.1. 4 earthquakes in Fiji, 5.7. New Caledonia, 5 earthquakes, 7.1. Indonesia, 5 quakes, 5.5. Guam, 6.4, 2 quakes there. Japan, 1 quake, 3.8. Alaska, 4 earthquakes, 3.6. California, 4 earthquakes, 4.4. Mexico, 1 earthquake, magnitude 4.3. Bolivia, 1 earthquake, magnitude 5. Chile, 2 earthquakes, magnitude 4.5. Argentina, 1 quake, magnitude 4.3. The Ring of Fire is literally shaking itself apart. The tectonic plate movement, the pressures that are building up there, it's all leading to what this report is referencing, and many reports are referenced as the big one. They claim the big one is a hypothetical earthquake of a magnitude 8 or above. It's not a hypothetical earthquake of a magnitude 8 or above, it's a 9 or above. That's the big one. That one, I believe, is coming. The movements of the Earth are suggesting that things are really unsettled. The volcanoes that are waking up also suggest that the Earth is unsettled. Magma is able to move up from the mantle of the Earth up to the crust through places it hasn't been able to do so for years, and that's because of the movement and the pressures on the Earth. So sometime, I can't say if it's this year, earthquakes are notoriously difficult in terms of looking at them really far in the future, but you know, people like Dutchsons, I think I said his name right, are quite good at looking at forecasting like a 2-week range. So I would probably suggest having a look at any videos that he posts up in the next coming days. He's talking about anything really large coming in the Pacific Ring of Fire, because all these earthquakes are leading up to something, and the common theory is it's going to be the biggest movement is going to take place along the west coast of the United States. It could be elsewhere, but you know, because Indonesia's had it, Japan's had it, 2004, 2011. Now we're in 2018. It's kind of equal years apart from earthquake tsunami scenarios. So it's possible that this year could be another one, and that's one of the scenarios that we've been looking at over and over and over again. I don't think I need to re-clarify that. Now we're on to the ridiculous, and scientists want to coax asteroids closer and dig out their minerals. This is all sorts of stupid. The idea of bringing an asteroid into Earth's vicinity is not a good one. I haven't got much to say on this one. I just wanted to bring it up to make you guys aware of the things that these people are up to in the name of science and advancing their agendas. One of the largely talked about scenarios, and one that's been put in a lot of movies and subliminal messaging, is asteroid strike, a large asteroid strike. It's more than likely that any large asteroid strike would be, how to say, orchestrated. It wouldn't be natural. And whether that's an actual asteroid or whether that's, you know, a simulation of an asteroid, you know, they could use projection equipment, or the recent reports of them having satellites that they have which could release different colors as they enter the atmosphere looking like asteroids. They could do that instead, and then a nuclear explosion would be the impact. Obviously, probably doing it in a place where no one is actually close enough to observe what actually happened. But I'm sure that would be the scenario if it was an asteroid. So the last part of this is this skull-shaped asteroid, and this brings me to the last watch period I have of this year, one that I've held on to for about 3 months now, and just looked at the others as they've been laid out before me. But this is the last period, which is the October the 31st to November the 5th. That's Halloween to fireworks night or bonfire night. We heard about this skull-shaped asteroid coming around Halloween. I think it was in 2015. It's set to fly by again this year, this time in November. So I don't know if that's going to be around the 5th or within that time frame, considering this skull-shaped asteroid was referenced in Halloween type period, and I have one more watch in that time period as well. I thought I would just mention it now. Obviously, the skull, you could obviously think of the skeleton from the iPad Goat video. I'm not sure that's exactly what it references. I don't think so, but it's interesting enough for me to report on, and just to mention that final little date that I'm looking at. It's quite far away, obviously 2 months away, so mentioning it now probably will be forgotten. I'll probably mention it again after this September period passes, if it passes without any events. So you guys, that's all the information I've got for you. Have a good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and may the Heavenly Father bless you.